Will the defendant please stand?
We find the defendant, Hannah Gutierrez, guilty of involuntary manslaughter as charged in count 1. We find the defendant, Hannah Gutierrez, not guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in count 2.
All right, thank you. You may be seated. Let me get those forms, retrieve those forms from you.
Howdy folks, this is your friendly neighborhood watchman, here with you today to talk about the unfortunate involuntary manslaughter trial that took place involving Alec Baldwin, the producer and actor on the set of Rust, and the armorer of the film, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, over the accidental death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. And as I surmised, and I wasn't the only one, not by a long shot, that cynically was envisioning that Hannah will be scapegoated and take the fall for everyone involved. She has no clout. She was around 23 years old, and I'm not excusing her, but we can envision her taking the fall. But without further ado, let us get into this article from the New York Post, with the byline being Patrick Riley, with the heading Rust Armorer Hannah Gutierrez Reed found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in fatal shooting of Halyna Hutchins. Rust armorer Hannah Gutierrez Reed was found guilty Wednesday of involuntary manslaughter in a fatal shooting of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins on a set of the Western movie in 2021. Wow, how quickly time does fly. It seemed like it happened months ago. At least that's what it feels like to me when I made my first video on it. But I digress. A jury convicted Gutierrez Reed, 26, after 3 hours of deliberation, finding she was ultimately responsible for the live rounds on set, one of which killed Hutchins when it was fired from a gun held by actor Alec Baldwin during a rehearsal. Gutierrez Reed was placed into the custody of deputies following the conviction, which her lawyers said she will appeal. She faces up to 18 months in prison, the same penalty Alec Baldwin was going to face until that was dropped. The movie Weapons supervisor's parents were at court Wednesday, and Gutierrez Reed's mother buried her face in her hands as the verdict was delivered. There's, of course, Halyna Hutchins, who should still be living among us if industry standard safety protocols involving firearms were followed. During the trial, prosecutors said the armorer repeatedly flouted gun safety protocols that could have detected the live rounds she's accused of unknowingly bringing onto the movie set at a ranch outside Santa Fe, New Mexico. This was a game of Russian roulette every time an actor had a gun with dummies, prosecutor Carrie Morrissey said during closing arguments. Hannah Gutierrez failed to maintain firearm safety, making a fatal accident willful and foreseeable, said Morrissey. Gutierrez Reed faced a second charge, tampering with evidence, of which she was found not guilty. This is Hannah's father, Del Reed, who himself used to work as an armorer, and Hannah's mother, Stacy, after the verdict was read. The armorer's lawyer had argued that she was being scapegoated over larger safety issues on a Santa Fe set, including Baldwin's mishandling of weapons, which I agree with. It was not in the script for Mr. Baldwin to point the weapon, defense attorney Jason Bowles told jurors. She didn't know that Mr. Baldwin was going to do what he did, said Bowles, adding that nobody working on Rust thought there were live rounds on set. The verdict pins a large part of blame for Hutchins' death on the armorer, after the film's assistant director David Halls pleaded no contest to negligent handling of a firearm last year. Baldwin, the movie's star and co-producer, was indicted in January on a charge of involuntary manslaughter. He was pointing a pistol at Hutchins on a movie set when the gun went off with a live round loaded in the chamber, killing her and wounding director Joel Souza. Baldwin has maintained he never pulled a trigger, which is a lie, which contradicts the FBI's ruling that the revolver could not have been fired without the trigger being pulled. His case is scheduled to go on trial in July. Hutchins' parents, Olga Solovey and Anatoly Androsovich and her sister Svetlana Semko said in a statement through their attorney that they are satisfied with Gutierrez Reed's conviction. We look forward to the justice system continuing to make sure that everyone who is responsible for Halyna's death is required to face the legal consequences for their actions, the family said. Yeah, well, then that will mean Alec Baldwin also has to be found guilty, because you're not going to pin this whole thing on a novice. Now, I'm not excusing her because she's a novice. If you don't have the knowledge to successfully carry out your duties, then don't apply for the job. Speaking of Hannah taking a position of armorer. However, Alec Baldwin is a veteran actor who's been working in Hollywood for over 4 decades, over 40 years now. He knows better. He still bears responsibility, even if he wasn't co-producer, because he handled the gun ultimately when it went off. And you're not supposed to point the firearm directly at someone. There's no need for it. Not with camera angles that can make it seem as if you're pointing the gun at someone when you're not, when the person's not directly in the line of fire, due to optical illusion, or obviously we now have CGI. But Baldwin is co-producer, and the responsibility falls upon him. He's the one in charge. He's a veteran actor. He's a senior actor on set. He's a co-producer. He bears responsibility for everything under his watch. And if he had followed standard firearm safety procedure on a film set, Halyna Hutchins would be alive. So yes, Hannah is being scapegoated. She does bear responsibility too for having live rounds on set. But this tragedy still could and would have been avoided had Alec Baldwin done his part. Hannah doesn't have the clout and the friends that Alec Baldwin has. You know, he has lots of friends in Hollywood. Hollywood being a leftist, Democrat-dominated town and industry, and him being so popular with them when he used to frequent Saturday Night Live impersonating Donald Trump. So he has loads of admirers, whereas Hannah Gutierrez Reed does not. But with that, I digress, and let us take a gander at the readers' comments and see what they have to say about this situation. First up, we have KB. Many are forgetting that the original armorer and several others quit a day or two before the shooting. Well, that's partially correct. There was no original armorer who left. Hannah Gutierrez Reed was always the armorer from the start of making a film. He's right about several others quitting due to unsafe conditions. So to continue, so this goes way deeper than Gutierrez Reed. Baldwin was the executive producer and should bear just as much blame as Gutierrez Reed, which I agree with, most definitely. Average Citizen replies, few hours before Hutchins' death, half a dozen camera crew workers walked off the set in protest of their working conditions on the film, which included long hours and paycheck turnaround time. In fact, one of the crew members the Times spoke to stated that around that time, Hutchins was advocating for those who were upset and wanted safer conditions for her team. The report goes on to state that there were tensions brewing with the film's crew due to the fact that they were constantly being told to adapt to unexpected changes, like driving 50 miles to set from Albuquerque each day instead of having hotels paid for in Santa Fe. On the Thursday morning of the incident, the crew showed up for work at approximately 6:30 a.m. and spent an hour assembling their gear at Bonanza Creek Ranch, where filming was taking place. The crew, who were members of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, then learned that non-union crew had been brought in to replace them. Interesting. Jasper Johns also replies, no armorer quit the day before. It was camera crew. Yes, that's exactly what I was talking about earlier. Navarch Lysander says, one down, one to go, for sure. I don't really bear any ill will toward Alec Baldwin. However, the way he handled the gun the day Hutchins was killed was grossly negligent. Agreed. Baldwin doing time for this is the only thing that will get the message across to Hollywood that safety with a firearm is a non-delegable duty. You cannot hire an armorer and make her solely criminally responsible for the failure of people like Alec Baldwin, on a set to follow basic gun safety procedures, the armorer can and should be held responsible when he or she doesn't ensure that safety protocols are followed and someone gets hurt, but so should the people who fail to follow those protocols. Exactly my point. Eric Schwartz replies, as a producer of the film, he's also responsible for who was hired. George Scalavac also replies, imagine if this happened to Trump. Baldwin will be asking for Trump to get 25 years. So my friends, if you agree that Alec Baldwin also bears responsibility and that Hannah Gutierrez Reed is being scapegoated, if she's the only one to face any penalty from this tragedy, then hit that like button. If you agree with some of the comments made by the readers, smash that like button. And help the channel out by subscribing if you haven't already done so. And hit that notification bell so that you'll always be given a heads up whenever I drop another video. And as always, stay safe and I bid you peace.
I'm going to remand you, and the reason why I'm going to remand you is you are now convicted. And so, and this is a death. It's a criminal negligence, but it's still a death. And so, deputies, you're going to take her into custody, and we will set a sentencing date. What is the best, what do we want to look like on that? And we need an order of remand, do we? Hey.